right, Brenton, here we are. Another week, another office hours, talking about
Excited.
DealHub.
Yes. Yes. Feels like we're covering a lot of really fun topics right now. Uh, Jumping between different ones. I think today will be just the same because it helps to expose a few things that maybe especially new admins don't even think about. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Right. It's going to be pretty heavy if we get in deep on some of these items. As I started to kind of document the items I'm going to cover, and my item's not even as deep as yours. So hopefully this will be helpful to a bunch of people. But yeah, before we get started, do you want to start with the
A little
opening?
opener. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were th thinking about, all right, well, we've been sharing, what are we, something unique, something that we do. And this week, with so much news around I thought, well, how do we use AI in the business to supplement or enhance things that we're doing? Um, and so, a lot we could talk about for sure, but a couple of things that I wanted to highlight is there's obvious benefit to using AI as a uh, editorial assistant. We definitely are using it to help us with content and documentation and everything else. But with the way that everything is really accelerating in the marketplace and how you can do no code type solutions, I thought I'd demonstrate one use case where we're even able to enhance how we interact with the systems we use day in and day out. So what I've done is there's a pain point that I knew wasn't going to get addressed in the near term, and that was in certain UIs and certain experiences. There are scenarios where I need to know the full ID of an item. And so, yes, we could certainly try zooming in, zooming out, but just the way that this list is generated in DealHub, it's challenging to be able to read and know, well, which ones of these items are the ones that I actually need to reference for, a question that I'm creating or output documents, whatever it may be. So, what we've done is I've gone and created an extension that its sole purpose is to help me see this field a little bit better. So I have it mapped to a keyboard shortcut, and all it does is simply makes that one field, makes the width larger. So now with a stroke of a key, I can dive right in and see, oh, this is the field that I was looking to reference. Um, so the thing that I guess I'm showing off or talking about here is just how with the AI revolution coming out, right? You have the ability to actually leverage it and enhance everything that you do. This is a great example of how I and my team use it on a daily basis. Here you can see it helps us interact with the system in a very uh, in a better way. Other ways we've used automation and AI, like we have a process in place today that allows us to go through an entire playbook in DealHub, extract every question, every option, and read it back in to a whole nother playbook, whether it's for a customer after making some edits. And it's a system that we've actually been able to use pretty efficiently a few times now, helping customers consolidate or make some broad sweeping changes without having to invest tons of man hours. So I put all this out here just to highlight some capabilities that we have, but also in interest anybody who wants to chat about AI and how they're using it or how it can maybe help you with a CPQ implementation. We're all ears and we love talking about that stuff.
Yeah. I'm like I'm resisting diving in and showing how AI helped me pick apart some Apex code earlier in the week. Like I
Yes.
felt like the Apex code thing in particular, and I didn't even have to ask Chat GPT that. I just dumped the entire Apex in there. I said, what does this do? Told me exactly what the Apex did, and it said some gaps, like basically some gaps in
Yes.
this apex are X, Y, and Z. So it was incredible. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty fun to be able to take advantage of it. I feel like it's making us all a lot more productive. So
Efficient for sure. I agree. All
cool.
right, cool.
So maybe housekeeping items, right? So one thing that I am working on is we're posting all the old office hours on YouTube. So if you missed, I know like the change management topic was really good that we did last week. We'll have
Yep.
that uploaded pretty soon and shared out. But if you're listening in on LinkedIn, in the comments, there's the link to the Zoom. Happy to have you kind of join in and participate in the discussion because we're going to be talking about volume based discounting, volume based pricing today,
Yep.
and you might have some examples to throw at us so we could try to hash through together. Be kind of fun.
That's
um
right.
Perfect. So I think that I will open up and start talking about MSRP price. I'm going to talk about MSRP, but I'm going to talk about it in the context of like the different pricing that is available in DealHub. So let me go ahead and I'm going to try to share my desktop. Brent, let me know if I've been successful.
Yep. We're we can see it.
Okay, there's not a lot here. So I'll we have this built out in our own knowledge base, and so I'm kind of pointing to one article. The amount fields in DealHub are vast and complex, so much so that we've have a whole internal document that kind of goes through what's list price, what's MSRP, what's net per unit price, and so forth. But what I wanted to focus on right now, and it's going to be pertinent to what Brenton talks about at the end, is MSRP, because I think MSRP is relatively recent. Like it got introduced in the last year. I don't remember seeing it way back when. Um, yeah. And I think the importance of it is you have something called list price, and you would assume you would think that list price is like your base price. Like, so for example, if something is $100, the list price would always be $100, right? Um, but in reality, list price can be adjusted based on what we're going to kind of go through today, right? Like volume based pricing, right? So if you have higher volume, then maybe the price goes down per unit. Well, you're
Mhm.
not discounting it, you're changing the list price. So the system adjusts the list price. So if you reference it, um, it's kind of a moving target, right? So you always need to have something that fixes the price of a product in time. And that's what MSRP does. I think that there is a good point here that, by the way, Scott wrote this article. So the MSRP advantage. So MSRP has one quality that no other value in DealHub has. MSRP is not modified by any factor, like list
Right.
price factors and so forth. But whereas list price is modified, and that'll make more sense when Brenton kind of goes into his demo. But I just wanted to bring this up. Like, if you're struggling with getting the right answer based on attributes that you're calling from a value perspective in DealHub, you're not the only one. And we've spent a bunch of time discussing it and hashing it out, obviously documenting it. So, reach out to us on LinkedIn or someplace if you've got questions about that.
And furthermore, part of the confusion comes from the fact that different CRMs handle these numbers in a different way,
Well, that's
right?
true. That's true.
So one system might expect list price to be untouched, not having any factors applied to it. Another system may expect it to always have something like the duration or quantity participating in it. So yeah, there's definitely nuances also, not just in how the numbers are referenced in DealHub, but then the system that you're connecting to, and then how your organization defines those values. And maybe they have their own custom names. Like it becomes a pretty intricate web quickly.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
so being able to reference, all these items definitely, yeah, takes a minute.
I love discussing what sales price and Salesforce means, and we're not even going to talk about that today.
No,
But
not today.
but Salesforce has the same kind of nomenclature, list price, sales price, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so I'm going to go through the idea here is volume based pricing. How do you do it in the system? Well, the answer with everything in DealHub is, by the way, there's 5 ways to do it, and you really have to understand all 5 different ways to be able to pick the best one, both from a building perspective, but also from a maintainability perspective. And we debate this heavily when we're doing implementations, because if you tear off on the wrong direction, you can kind of back yourself in a corner. So
Yep.
I created an example here, and I may flip to actually live Deal Hub, but I also have screenshots just in case. So the example is simple. We're selling cloud storage, and the idea is that it's $100, but as you go up in volume, then like if you have 7 units, then your price is discounted, so it's 96.50. If you have 25 items, your price is $90, right, and so forth. So pretty straightforward use case. This happens all the time, right? Usually what we see when we start with new customers that are doing this in a spreadsheet is like the reps are just doing it out of their head. So you want to build a systemic systematic way to do this without it being a discount, right? Because if you're giving a volume price that's $90 because they're buying 50, that's not a 10% discount. So you want to still give the rep the discount, the ability to discount within their window of 10 to 20%, right? You don't want to chew it up with the volume, because you're really recognizing like reduced cost by selling high volume. So
Yes.
anyway, that's the example. Brenton, anything I missed on explaining that?
No, no, there are the little nuancy things like when you're setting up volume discounting, don't forget that you don't want to end and start a tier on the same number. That causes confusion, and that's something that's easy to do in a spreadsheet. But then when you're automating it, those are items that you always have to be considerate of, making sure you're not creating gaps in the tiers you're generating.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, so first way to do this in DealHub, right? Um,
Yes.
you can create separate pricing rules, and so this looks a lot like our table up here, right? I've got tier 1 through 5, and we can see it tier 1, and I'm kind of like basing it on the size, the CS size is the quantity of gigabytes.
Yep.
Excuse me. And so, if it's less than 5, use the price of $100. If it's greater than 5, and let me
And
flip.
less than 20 probably.
Yes, less than 20. I'm going to avoid flipping over unless I need to. It's 96.50. So this is very straightforward, right? Like I open it up, it's pretty easy to understand. Um, and I definitely know that there's multiple prices for this product. So I kind of tried to take a
Yes.
pass at like, what are the pros to this, right? I do feel like it's intuitive and easy to identify a product price.
Yep.
Um, Cons, if you export this, it kind of stinks to try to deal with it.
Yeah, you
So
have to have your degree in Microsoft Excel to be able to use
you do.
lots of different sorting, filtering, organizing strategies to sort through. If you have 100 products and all of them have volume discounting, right? You've in this case 5x the number of pricing rules you're going to have, and this is just for
Yes.
new business. This isn't even capturing renewals, expansions, or other unique pricing situations. So um, yeah, that's definitely one. Another item I'm thinking of as I look at these is when you're defining the rule itself. Um, right now this is based on a playbook question. So
Yes.
if typically this strategy is going to work really well for new business or adding a SKU to a customer that hasn't purchased it yet. But how do you want to handle this when it's renewals? When you need to look at previous subscription records, and still allow for the tier model to come into play without having to recreate all of those pricing rules for every variation. That's a, can be a challenge taking this approach.
Yes, definitely. And maybe I'll flash up the spreadsheet so we can, for those of us
Appreciate the volume.
who nerd out on DealHub, are you seeing my spreadsheet now?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay, so anybody familiar with this? You've got the product attributes, you have the product assignments, and then pricing rules. Um, so my typical move is I like to filter it first,
Right.
and then let's find that product. So this is the 1 gig of cloud storage. This is just a demo environment, but somehow we've managed to really clog it up with quite a bit of stuff, I think.
Got a lot of demos.
Here we go. CS storage one.
Yes.
All right, cool. So we see here's my pricing rules that we're looking at.
Yep. Perfect.
So kind of like you said, like if you have this on 20 products, oof, you know, um, you're gonna be picking, you're gonna going probably going line by line, unless you have your degree in Excel, like you said.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I like it. I don't love it. Um,
It's simple. It just
it's
creates a maintenance burden in the future potentially. I guess is a
yes,
good
it
way to put
is
it.
like the brute force method. Okay. Now, probably the recommended method would be to use list price factors. What are list price factors? They're you just set a price, $100, and then you point to basically the quantity driver for the what affects the list price, right?
Yep.
And let me pull it over here. So then it points at this table and it basically mimics what I did in that spreadsheet, right? Like from 0 to 5, instead of representing the price of $100, it just represents the discount.
Yep.
So yeah, straightforward. Uh, However, if you're not a deal hub, if you're not into looking at deal hub all the time and you step in here, you would probably miss this. And
Hmm.
then okay, finding that list price factor and then observing it here, it takes you have to hold the two in your head to be able to understand what's happening, right?
Yes.
As opposed to it all happening on one page.
Yes, for sure.
So
And
yeah, go ahead.
I'll say a pro though of leveraging the discount options. And if you don't mind bringing that screen back up, it doesn't have to just be one mode of volume discounts. So just from leveraging this strategy,
Mm-hmm.
your discount can be based on dollars. So every tier you take off a couple of dollars, but it can be
Mm-hmm.
percentage based.
Yes.
And that makes it really flexible because now, if the base price of a product differs, if it's percentage based, then you're always providing that same threshold, that same discount benefit for volume, without having to become an Excel whiz and figure out, well, because the base price is high or low, I need to take more or less off with every tier. That
Yes.
taking a percentage based approach really just simplifies it overall. Potential con of that though, you probably miss out on having nice round numbers in your
Yes.
proposals. Um, there are some strategies that we implement a number of different ways to help with the rounding. But if it is important for your proposals to have a a nice round number, that could be a potential downfall. I also wanted to just quickly call out here, Ryan. Linear discounting is great, but DealHub does offer the ability for progressive discounting, meaning that for the first 5 licenses, no discount is applied. For the next, from 6 to 20 licenses, then the appropriate discount dollar amount or percentage would be applied without taking money off of the initial licenses.
Right.
So this helps you capture more revenue per license sold, um, instead of just saying, oh, because you are buying 20 licenses, we will take X dollars off every single license. Um, so
How
this
does
tiered
it
approach.
yeah, so I actually I don't know that I've built this out in an environment yet. How does the per unit price show up? Is it a blended rate then?
The
Because it wouldn't be a separate line items for each bucket, right?
Yes, you're right. It is a blended. And actually, if on that chart, if you hover over um, the green and blue lines, it even shows you what the per unit and discount
Yes.
and list prices will turn out to be.
It's like a
Um,
cumulative. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
so if you do need to spot check, okay, when I sell 51 licenses, here's my per unit costs, or what the per unit list price will be, and then you can multiply it out, and that's what your list price will be on the Deal Hub side of things.
Yeah. I feel like what usually happens is you have a company that's built pricing in a spreadsheet, right? And then
Yes.
we are figuring out how to assimilate it into the platform.
Yes.
If you can educate your product team that there's capabilities in the tool, like this is pretty cool, right? Like, and explain the business value that you can capture more revenue for the smaller uh you know smaller, I think maybe Salesforce calls them slabs, right? Like
Hmm.
each tier. um then it can make your life way easier, right? Because now you can just hold that, kind of going back to my screenshot, you can just hold that single price and point to this table that does all the magic. And
Right.
then when they want to reduce the price by $10, you don't have to go update lines and lines of
Right.
prices. You
Everything
are
still
just,
scales.
yeah, it scales appropriately. Yep.
Or they change the tranches, the tiers, the slabs,
Yeah.
right? Not only in the quantity adjustment, but how much discount incentive they want to provide.
Yeah.
Um, this way, you're editing in one spot, and you could be impacting every single uh, a volume-based discounting item. And there's no limit to how many of these you can create. Another thing to point out. So if you need to have different stepping or different discounts, you can create many of these and reference them in across different products. So it's really quite flexible overall in
Yeah.
DealHub's infrastructure. Yeah.
I think, I think adoption will go up if we get an export import function here, right?
Yes.
Um, you know, because manipulating anything in volume, you always want to do it in a spreadsheet locally and then be able to upload it. So I'm sure it's on
Yes.
its way. And
That's
when it
right.
gets here, it'll make this much easier. Yeah.
And if
Cool.
not, we know how to automate
This is
it.
true.
Back to our
This
opener.
is true.
We know
This
how
is
to do it
true.
through AI.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I guess we actually kind of covered all the pros and cons there, right? So
I think so.
um the next one, and I'm probably gonna lean on you a little bit too. There is an article that covers this if anybody needs to check it out. But I did build out an example for using the calculate discount table, right? And so it's similar in function to what we just talked about, but it offers even more flexibility, right? And control.
It does.
So,
Yep.
same thing. I'm using the discount table, but instead of calling on it down here in the defined product factor, you just literally just put it directly into the price. And the just so I get it exactly right, I think they go
Yeah.
over the nomenclature right. Where is it? Oh, Yes.
Yes.
So the name of the pricing table is the first item. Then you have your start price, also called top price here, interestingly. And then, so our top price is $100 in our scenario. And then the quantity, and the quantity can really be anything, which is what makes it interesting. So, obviously, like to repeat what we're doing right now, we would put the size in, because then all it's doing is it's saying, hey, this is my table, go to the table, use the top value of $100, and then based on base the amount of discount by the quantity. So if you have
Yep.
25, it goes to this table, and it basically kind of hard sets this at $100, and then it goes 55, and then it goes and it says, oh, my discount's $25, so the
Yes.
price is 75. Yeah.
Yes. And I'll say I've used this in a number of different locations, and the extra benefit it brings is that you can expand upon your pricing equation. Whereas if you had done it a different way and maybe just reference the discount table using that quantity drop down, you don't have as much flexibility, right?
Right.
The quantity is the discount is going to be based on the volume of that SKU, opposed to maybe you actually need to implement more of a discount because of some other product. And the quantity of that is actually going to drive how much discount is getting applied. But you don't need to document it. You just need it to be inferred, right? So that could be one thing. Another way I've used it in this approach is that I needed to do more with the price after the discount for volume had been applied. So because more security was added to a product. They had to increase the price because of other selections made in the playbook for the
Mm-hmm.
proposal. Um, and so adding more pricing factors on top of it, doing it in this way made it so that those additive prices didn't get discounted because of the volume discounting, but rather were added on after the fact. And if you don't do it this way, then
Yeah.
all that cumulative pricing information all of a sudden gets discounted right away.
Is there any reason you wouldn't just automatically go here instead of using the quantity? I mean, I guess it's a step farther from intuitive, probably,
Right.
right? Because you see, I've used it many times, but I still want to go back and I want to reference exactly how that formula is put together. Um, but
Yes.
it allows
No,
you
there,
so much more flexibility in the end, right?
yes. But then it is, lack of a better term, potentially more brittle because now you have a
Mm,
unique
yes,
equation that needs maintenance, opposed
yes,
to using embedded functionality that does all the connections behind the scenes for you, right? Um, so that's what I always try to think through when uh, shifting towards a calculate discount table equation versus using the standard functionality is, now I'm creating a potential unicorn that I have to document, I have to maintain, I have to watch for as changes happen to the environment, because
yes,
it's not just using native mapping.
yes, yes. Well, and we experience this a lot, right? We go into environments that other admins have built, and so we have to figure out what's going on there. So I think we're very sensitive to, as much as you can, you want to build down the fairway of functionality, so it makes sense to the next person that steps in.
That's right.
All right, I think that's good. And then the last one, and this one I love the most, and it's maybe a little bit of a cheat code that we use, right? So
Yep.
what can be challenging, I'm going to flip over to the spreadsheet. What can be frustrating about updating the pricing rules is, well, you've got to dig through a multi-line table to update rules. So to do this in mass can be kind of challenging.
Mhm.
Whereas the product attribute sheet's so much simpler, right? And it's so if I go to my CS storage right here, and we've added some attributes, and simply call them base price, tier one, tier two, tier three. Now, if I want to go and update these prices, it's a matter of, just kind of thumbing through all of them and then
Right.
re-uploading it, right? Now, to
Right.
do that, you have to do a couple things. You got to create the attributes,
Yes.
and then in your prices, instead of putting the price, you just reference the attribute.
Hmm.
And then what can happen too is like all your pricing rules for all your products kind of look the same, right? You're not updating. They all just point to these attribute tiers or the base price in most
Hmm.
cases. So it makes updating them really easy. And here, yeah, here's a screenshot of it with the product attribute price there.
Yes.
So
I'm a
yeah,
huge fan of the product attribute prices for the same reason you just highlighted, but just to emphasize how convenient it makes it, right? If you have to make a pricing change, it makes it so that you have a single row in a worksheet to look at instead of
yes,
having to, navigate through, tens, 20s, 30 pricing rules and making
yes,
sure that something isn't offset by a little bit or an equation's off slightly. It really does simplify everything, and we build with this in mind. We try to implement this wherever possible.
yes. And the thing that isn't obvious when you're building, but becomes obvious 6 months later when the rest of the team wants to know what prices are in the system. And hey, I want to update these. And you say, well, to tell you what the price of the storage is, I have to explain to you what a discount table is, and I've got to go dig that discount table up. Like, and this is where I lean away from pricing like this, although it's elegant and simple in the system. It is incredibly hard to articulate back to the business what does storage cost when you have a price of $100 and you're pointing to a quantity table. You basically have to build a spreadsheet to figure it back out.
Yep.
Whereas um, if you do it in the pricing rules, okay, maybe it's a little bit easier, maybe.
Hmm.
But if you take it even that step farther and you add your tiers here, now it's super simple. Somebody asks you, what does 1 gig of cloud storage cost? You say, oh, no problem. Let me give you this, and I'll
It's
I'll
true.
delete everything out, and here's the base price, tier one price, tier two price. Maybe you have to add a little bit of detail about what tier one and tier two is, but
Right. The volumes. Yep. Yep.
super
It's
easy.
true.
I mean, we're kind of going through that with one of our customers right now, where half of it's implemented in this, and some folks that are in the system that aren't as familiar with DealHub, you know, tried to get the pricing out of the system, uh, and they saw it at face value for the ones that have been updated with the product
Mm.
attribute. Like they're like, yeah, so there's the price, base price, no problem, right? But anything that doesn't have that, it's a more complex conversation to explain the pricing rules and then the quantity based pricing and so forth. So
Absolutely.
I mean that's I think that even we're talking about volume based pricing here, which is a more complex situation, but we do this even for just simple flat pricing, right? Like, I mean,
Yep.
every system will put the price in as an attribute and then just reference it. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, it still carries with it the con that in this situation that you're going to have a lot more pricing rules, but
Hmm.
I guess my counter to that is I'm going to try not to touch those because I'm going to be updating things in the product attributes. So it kind of like counterbalances that a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Right. You set up that template perfectly one time, and then it can just continue to be used. You don't have to do too much massaging. Yeah. Yeah. And another thing that's beneficial for all these strategies is that it does help the bottom line of every deal, right? Now you're not relying on the reps leveraging a spreadsheet, hoping that
Yes.
they've plugged in numbers the right way. You've systematized it, right? You're now able to confidently state, well, because this is how we do discounts, or this is how volume pricing works, you know that once those thresholds are met, that it's only then are the prices coming down.
Yeah.
Cool. So what I thought I'd do, I enjoy building small demos, showing off some of that capability, and along the way showing some functionality that maybe not everybody knows about or uses in DealHub as well. So for today, what I've gone ahead and created was a couple of different volume-based discounting examples. Let me add two products. Let me say that, they both have a handful of some volume to them. And right away, oh, and let me change the duration of this deal. I want just a 12 month. Okay. Right away, this is the same product that Ryan was reviewing there earlier. And I know that the base price of this is $100.
Hmm.
However, we now see that the list price for cloud storage, at least, um, that's changed. And this was done kind of transparently. If I go and where's my quantity? I kind of forget my thresholds. Let me actually open this up. So the second I'm over 101 licenses, there's actually going to be a 35% discount on this item. So to show that, we have this is a feature that I like to use a lot is that there are a couple of widgets that allow for you to disconnect from the bottom of the screen so you can look at more than
I
one thing at a
never,
time.
I never do that.
And so here we have our product. The second I go and make a pricing change, you can see that the list price has changed because the list
Yes.
price, as we reviewed, includes different factors. And one of them would be volume based pricing. Um, so one thing that one of our clients wanted to be able to demonstrate or document to their customers is saying, hey, look, because you've bought volume of this item, you're actually already benefiting before we provide any discounts just because of the volume-based incentives that come with the product. And so today, DealHub doesn't really have a great out-of-the-box mechanism to assist in the documentation of or displaying here's how much you saved because of the volume you purchased. And the way to handle that and suggestions we've received is to build additional attributes on your products that you can then leverage in the output documents themselves. And so using some strategies and techniques that we've reviewed in some other office hour sessions, I have a sample where maybe we want to add volume-based discountings onto the proposal. And so we have a preview window of here is what the total table would look like for the deal. If this is a nice way to see the output without actually having to generate the PDF and jump back and forth between files. You can have a little preview pane of what the end output will look like. And so uh, I've built this out to have three tiers kind of associated with it. The first tier is just give me the net price no matter what happens. So regardless if there's volume discounting being applied, if the rep adds sales discount as well, the base price is just going to show the base price. But we can add layers to this, add more information to the output. We can expose, for example, well, how much discount came from the sales rep?
Mm.
And we can start to expose that. Or we can even start adding things like, well, let's take a look at the absolute price of this product using the MSRP value that Ryan reviewed earlier. This has no factors applied to it. And then we can start exposing, well, of the products purchased, and I must have deselected or made a change, but regardless, how much savings is coming because of volume discounting?
Yeah.
And that brings you to a new price. And then how much savings are you getting as an additional discount or incentive? And so now being able to add these layers really helps to tell the story of what that customer is paying for, and lets them see the benefit of these other savings mechanisms that you've built into your product lines. Um, and this is a process that we've helped a couple of organizations implement to date. So hopefully that's helpful, just to bring it full circle, right? We started
Yeah.
at the what is MSRP? That is the absolute base. DealHub provides a variety of different options for introducing volume discounting, and then yeah, it can come all the way out to the final output as well.
Awesome. I feel like every time we prepare for these office hours, it it motivates us to create documentation. Some of it we already have, right? Like that our amounts article that we use internally. But now I've created this volume based article. And so I think probably just like we did with our 10 mistakes, we'll get this into something that's externally available. But if you watch this, this week and you need the information right now, reach out. I'm happy to share it kind of in draft form, and also of course happy to take feedback on it. So
Yes, yes, and also that, I mean, just to put it out there, from one of our early office hours, right? We reviewed an article talking about the top 10 mistakes. It was still being workshopped, if you will. And just this week, we've driven it all the way to a state where we've been able to post it. So that's available for everyone to review right on our blog, on our website, thrivity.com. And we've already received some great feedback around some of those pointers. Um, and we'd be happy to talk more in depth about anything that maybe you've caught yourself in, even just as a learning experience. So
yeah,
just putting that out there, that one of those articles we talked about in the past, that's now available. All right.
perfect. All
I
right,
think that's another great office hour session, Ryan.
absolutely. Okay, I guess we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for
All
watching.
right. Take care now.
Bye.